Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're here for two reasons, and that is to announce charges and indictments against 19 individuals for having dangerous and illegal firearms in the Houston area and our efforts to take them off the streets. Also, to announce the federal firearms and indictment against the violent criminal who shot three Houston police officers 4 weeks to today, ago from today, as I was, Chief Benner told me a few minutes ago, for officers and using one of those weapons. So I want to introduce my partners here. I have Special Agent in Charge Fred Milanowski with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Behind him is Major Nelson, and he is from the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. Harris County Sheriff's Office, excuse me. I practiced in Beaumont for a while, so sorry about that. Behind me is Chief Fenner, and he's with the Houston Police Department. And over here in the hat is our United States Marshal, T. Michael O'Connor. And I'm glad to have our partners here today. They are the ones that helped us in the investigation of these cases. But I want to tell you that not all firearms are illegal. But we want to ensure those with violent felony records and who violate the federal law have unlawful modified block switches or fully automatic switches are taken off of the streets. We want to make our streets safer. We'll not stand by idly while those that are persecuting all of our officers and shooting at all of our officers and target them on a day-to-day basis. Those violent criminals that are doing that and using illegal weapons, we want to get them off the streets. Last year, there were 73 law enforcement officers who were feloniously killed by someone, a violent offender, and with a gun. This year, they have been 6, including the one that happened yesterday with the San Jacinto deputy, Constable Precinct 1. This has to stop. The federal indictment returned against Roland Caballeros was returned on February 16th in connection with the shooting of the 3 HPD officers. As you remember, Caballero is accused of shooting law enforcement with a gun. It was a pistol modified to operate as a machine gun. A fully automatic switch was attached. You may hear him as a Glock switch. He fled the scene on foot. Then he carjacked a nearby vehicle. He fired again at the police officer and before he surrendered. On top of that, he was prohibited from possessing a gun. He was a felon. In the indictment, Roland Caballeros is charged with carjacking, discharging a firearm during a crime of violence, possession of a machine gun, and felon in possession of a firearm. He faces a minimum of 30 years in the federal penitentiary, up to life, for these serious federal charges. Right now, he's currently in state custody, and his federal parent state has yet to be determined. And we are working with the state on the charges, too. We want to ensure he remains behind bars and does not get on the street to harm somebody else. We'd also like to announce 19 indictments for felon in possession of a firearm, but also some that have possessed a switch, a fully automatic switch that converts a semi-automatic to a fully automatic. The possession of that switch by itself is a machine gun. Under federal law, you don't even have to have it attached to a pistol or another firearm. But attaching it makes that pistol and other firearm fully automatic. These cases range from someone who took a pistol with the automatic switch attached into a retail store in our city, someone who had one out in front of a club over on Washington, to someone who had one protecting his drugs. They're all different kind of situations where these cases happen, different facts behind these. It's not just one set of factual situations. The charges and penalties on these are 10 years in the federal penitentiary, all the way up to life. And for those felon in possessions, if they have 2 violent felony offenses, They are looking at 15 years, in the federal penitentiary up to life. My office, along with our partners here, state and local, and others that aren't here today, will continue to take these violent felonies and get them off the streets. If they're going to use these conversion switches, we're going to prosecute them. We're trying to make our streets safer again, and this is what a way we think that we can do them. And so that's why we have done this here, and that's why we're all here today to prosecute these cases. I'd also want to thank other partners that have helped us that aren't here today with the arrest and some of the investigations, and that was the Galveston Police Department, the Harris County Precinct 2 Constable's Office, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and the Brazos County Sheriff's Office. Right now, I'm going to turn this over to Special Agent in Charge, Fred Milanowski with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
Good afternoon, everybody. As the U.S. Attorney spoke, there's 19 individuals indicted. 8 of those individuals were indicted for the illegal possession of an unregistered machine gun, all being involved with full auto switch. Obviously, this is probably the 3rd time we've been in front of the media talking about these switches and firearms and modified guns. We've had several critical incidents in the city and the county, and we want to continue to keep a spotlight on this issue and have the community work with us to identify individuals that have these or are selling these devices. As you've heard before, but I'll tell you again, if there's a full auto switch on a pistol, they can put a 30-round magazine into that pistol and expend all 30 rounds in about 2.2 seconds. Okay? They can put a 50-round drum magazine on that firearm and expend those 50 rounds in about 4 seconds. So they're just throwing a ton of lead down range indiscriminately. We are just, when the 3 police officers from Houston the police department got into that shootout, we are just very lucky. If you remember, it was 4 weeks ago on a sunny afternoon on a Thursday. We are lucky there wasn't a ton of people on the sidewalks and on the streets because rounds were going everywhere from that full auto pistol. So this is a concern both for community and public safety as well as our law enforcement partners. People want to know, what are we doing? What is law enforcement? What is ATF doing about this problem? I will tell you, from fiscal year 2020 to fiscal year 2021, the number of investigations at ATF has tripled, and the number of seizures of these devices has risen 500%, 5-fold. So we are doing everything we can to put this on the front burner, to make these a priority, and to get these people off the street, which is obviously our strategy in these indictments that came down last week. Additionally, we've worked with the Houston Police Department and Harris County Sheriff's Office to develop training videos for their patrol officers and their patrol deputies, right? Because we need them to be our eyes and ears out there on the street. They're dealing with a lot more criminals out there. They're dealing with traffic stops, they're dealing with search warrants. They're more likely to be coming across these. And in almost every one of these training sessions, we've had officers or deputies that have had the deer in headlights look that said, I've seen those. I saw a baggie full of them in a car that I stopped. I didn't know what they were. Now they do. So we are continuing to get this message out to law enforcement, because people assume that police officers know what these things look like. Now they know what they do, but they don't always know what they look like, what they are outside of the gun. We have exemplars up here that I will allow the media to take a closer look at the end after we have some questions. But there's both full auto switches inserted into the firearms, and there's full auto switches outside of the firearms, in addition to 30-round magazines and 50-round drum magazines. That's not evidence up there, but those are exemplars of exactly what law enforcement has come across in the last few months here in Houston. In addition to that, ATF is bringing in a training element from our headquarters. We're going to train investigators and task force officers from local agencies that are assigned to ATF's Violent Crime Strike Force. And we're going to have an afternoon session for executives and law enforcement leaders, so that the chiefs and the assistant chiefs and the sheriffs in the area have a better understanding of what these switches are, what the violations of federal law, what the violations of state law, so that they can impose some policies within their own department and, again, be our eyes and ears and help us out, because this can't all be ATF and it can't all be the federal government solving this, right? Which leads us to the 11 individuals that got indicted for being previously convicted felons in possession of guns. Again, that's a strategy. That wasn't just 11 random people that happened to get charged. We know that there's some challenges in the Harris County court system. And so the Houston Police Department, the Harris County Sheriff's Office, and the Harris County DA's office has asked that we investigate and indict and charge more of these felon possession cases. Again, we're not going to rest our way out of this problem, so we have to set some guidelines. And in general, we're looking at individuals that have at least 2 prior violent felony convictions that are out in the street and they have rearmed themselves and gotten arrested again, or individuals that are convicted felons, get arrested in Harris County, get bond, and while they're out on bond, they rearm themselves and get arrested with the gun again. Those are cases that ATF is going to take a hard look at and work with our partners at the U.S. Attorney's Office to get those charged federally. And you heard the sentencing guidelines on those. It's a 10-year for felon possession. It's a 10-year. Caballero is looking at 30 years because he used a fully automatic weapon and discharged that weapon during a federal crime of violence, which was the carjacking. This is not the end, right? This is just the first round of this strategy to try to take some of the more violent criminals off the streets in Harris County, in addition to anyone that's possessing one of these full auto switches or a firearm with one of these full auto switches. So what I say to the community is that if you know people, whether they're friends of yours or family or whatever it is, and they have one and they bought it because they thought it was a kind of cool thing or it's a novelty, inform them. It is a 10-year federal felony, and we are going to prosecute those. They should destroy those immediately, or call the ATF office and turn them into ATF, turn them into law enforcement, those full auto switches. They can call ATF at 1-888-ATF-TIPS if they know an individual that is selling these devices on the streets of Houston, because obviously we want to be able to get these off. In one of the investigations, we bought almost 50 switches from an individual. So we know that people are putting these on the street. The challenge is, to be perfectly honest with you, these are being manufactured outside the United States. They're being illegally imported into the United States as other than full auto switches, either gun parts or toys or some other characterization of them. And then they're being spread out through sales on the internet mostly. We also do have some intelligence, including human intelligence, that they've had difficulty importing these in the United States. And so now they're importing them into the country of Mexico, and they're coming up the same drug routes that they're using to bring narcotics into this country. So it is a problem. It's obviously a huge concern. This is the third time, as I mentioned, that we've been in front of you about this issue, trying to keep a spotlight on this and trying to inform and keep as many people aware of this, the dangers of them, and the fact that it's a 10-year federal felony if you get caught with it. So I will leave it at that until the question and answer portion, and then also media can come up and take a look at the exemplars that we have. With that, I will introduce Houston Police Department Chief Troy Finner.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say thank you to my partners, my federal partners, and to the best U.S. Attorney in the nation, Jennifer Lowery. Thank you so much. And Fred, your partnership speaks second. U.S. Attorney's Office, our marshals, thank you, Harris County. Just want to say something. A few weeks back, we talked about the strong arm of federal agencies and our strong partnership. Some people you can tell them, but when you show them, that's what speaks. 30 years to life means something, and people hear that. And I want to make sure that they hear it today. Suspects, violent offenders, felons with guns, we're coming out to you. Thank you so much. 19 charges, indictments, federal indictments. That speaks volumes. This is just the start. We've been working together for a long time. I want to thank our task force officers with HPD. They're doing a lot of great work, but we can't do anything without the true partnership. And that's what I'm here to just say thank you today. I'm so very proud of it, and we're going to continue to do this. So it's no place for automatic weapons in a civilized society, and especially Houston, Harris County. And we're intentional as a team, standing up together, going after them. So I'm feeling good today. We're having heavy hearts. We just lost another law enforcement officer yesterday evening. We asked that we pray for him, but we're going to stand strong. And I just feel so good to stand with my partners today. We do know these weapons were used on our 3 officers, this type of weapon, just a few weeks ago. And last year, we lost Officer William Bill Jeffries. So we got to remove these kind of weapons off our streets. So I just want to say thank you, and I will stand later for questions.
Howdy. I'm T. Michael O'Connor. I'm the U.S. Marshal for the Southern District of Texas, and I hope someday I'll be able to speak before Chief Fenner, because he said everything that I echoed in saying. But so I'll leave it at this, to the point. Justice is coming. I'll assure you the collaboration between the agencies that are here today and beyond, and the collaboration going forward, we will be very vigilant, and justice will be served. We want to take care of the communities to which we live in, and the violent conduct that has escalated to this point. We assure you we are focused and we're on it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I just want to say the Harris County Sheriff's Office with our partners is committed to this effort. And we're letting the criminals know, just like everyone else has said up here, coming for you. If you have these devices, you will go to jail and you will be prosecuted. Thank you.
So we'll open it up for questions now. Does anybody have anything? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Donnelly Keith with Fox 26 News. Are all of the weapons there on the table, those were all confiscated from Houston? And also, you mentioned one person who was indicted had one of these fully automatic converted weapons at a retail store. Was this at an area mall, and did he try to rob the store?
It wasn't at a mall, and he was caught walking in the store. So, but it was a retail store. I don't want to give out names to just Houston store. Yes. And as far as those are just examples. They were not collected in any of the indictments we were speaking about today.
Can someone show us what this?
I'll let Special Agent Malinowski do that for you. He's good at that.
So let me clarify something. These exemplars are real devices that are exactly like the evidence that was found in many of these cases. So, but none of this is actual evidence. These guns have all been made safe, but this is a firearm, Glock pistol, with a switch inserted into the back of it. Okay, so and they have a toggle switch. Usually, one side is fully automatic, one side is semi-automatic. And like I said, this is the 30-round magazine. This gets inserted into here. 2.2 seconds, empty this magazine. 30 rounds. It's lead spraying down range. Let me show you. This is a 50-round drum magazine. This is not exactly, but this is similar to what the suspect had to shot the Houston police officers. 50 rounds in 4 seconds being sprayed down range. That's dangerous, right? It's not just dangerous for law enforcement. It's dangerous for the community. Anyone that happens to be there. God forbid we ever have an active shooter that has their hands on one of these. It will be a challenge. So that is why we're trying to continue to be out in front of this issue, get with the media, keep this I'm being transparent here. I want this spotlighted in the media because I want people to be aware of this. And I want them to call ATF or Houston Police Department or the Harris County Sheriff's Office if they know of people. This isn't about trying to arrest as many people as we can. That's not our goal here. Our goal is to get these devices off the street and anyone that is peddling or selling these devices. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question about something that happened yesterday. There was a teenager, he was arrested for a prohibited weapon, and he was able to produce a 3D printer ghost gun without a serial number, and he had 6 explosive devices. He threatened to blow up a school. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about this, Javine Saldana, but what do you
Is
have?
this in Harris County or the city, or where was it?
Yeah,
Harris County?
it's happened in Houston, Harris County.
Major
Yes.
review? I'm not aware of the details of that case.
Well, could you just kind of talk about the
But I will tell you,
3D printer guns that would
so
be
listen, that is a new phenomenon. We haven't necessarily seen a lot of it here in Texas or in Southeast Texas. But what is really classified as a privately made firearm, also known as a ghost gun, right? There's a couple different ways to get them. They can buy kits and complete them. That is not illegal, and they do not have make, model, or serial number on them. That's correct. And so other parts of the country, particularly the West Coast, have been overridden with these privately made firearms being used in crimes. There's some jurisdictions on the West Coast that 40 to 50% of guns that law enforcement is recovering are privately made firearms. At current time, we do not have that issue here, but those problems are out there. As far as the 3D printing goes, there is some 3D printing being done. Even these full auto switches that we talked about, people have experimented with the 3D printing of them. I will tell you, as far as the switches go, they don't hold up very well with the current technology with printing. They do work. They fail much more quickly than the ones that are being manufactured overseas and illegally imported into the United States. But it's not a surprise to me that there's individuals being arrested with privately made firearms, or AKA ghost guns.
so it's just as dangerous as some of these.
Well, the danger, particularly with the privately made firearms that get in the hands of criminals, is there's no way to track them, right? It could be a murder weapon, but we have no way of tracking how that individual got that in his hands. The whole purpose of the Gun Control Act of 1968 was to require the markings on firearms, and so that if that gun is recovered at a crime scene, it can be traced back to the original purchaser of the gun to give law enforcement a lead on, okay, you bought this gun. How did that gun get from your hands to this criminal's hands? But with a privately made firearm with no markings on it, that's why they call them ghost guns, because it's impossible to know who actually manufactured.
To clarify quick, and then I have a question for Chief Finner. Based on what the U.S. Attorney was saying at the beginning, I was trying to follow all of the different cases as a summation. Was the shooting yesterday involving the deputy constable also the use of a Glock switch? No.
No.
Okay. And then my next question is for Chief Finner. I mean, you all are standing up here and you're talking about these 19 indictments, and I totally get that. But yesterday, HPD released that body cam video from the incident last month, and there is nothing better, in my opinion, that shows the public how this is a danger to everybody, right? From the officers going through these neighborhoods to the sound of these weapons. Can you talk to me in context for the people who are watching and are thinking, oh great, 19 people were arrested, but what this means when it comes to violence for everyone?
Well, look, it puts it up front stage in everybody's living room or on everybody's phone. It's for people to use the device. It speaks to the need for all of us, law enforcement, the citizens, the courts, prosecutors, everybody to understand. And this is what's most important. Tell me what else is most dangerous than right now. That is the number one threat, if you ask me, to public safety. A suspect or anybody having a fully automatic weapon, because it could do so much damage in a short amount of time. So we got to stand as a community to make sure we do whatever we can do. Part of it is the education, because a lot of people don't even know they see it. And Fred's doing a good job with it, and HPD and Harris County, we're all getting together. But at the end of the day, everyone needs to step up. So thanks for bringing that up.
Chief, can you talk a little about yesterday's shooting? Are you going to say anything about the suspect who was accused of killing Deputy Neil Adams? And do you know what happened to the deputy's gun?
Yeah, I don't want to go into that right now at this press conference, but we will be sending some information out. I don't think the suspect, the medical examiner's office, they release that information, and then once they do it, we'll follow up. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then I've got one more question. If you're going to the podium, Emmett, it's actually a question for the U.S. Attorney's Office. I know the ATF said, listen, this is not the solution. Arrests alone are not how we're going to solve the gun violence across Houston. However, people, their ears perk up when they hear federal charges, because it's not the case as what we're seeing in Harris County, where violent criminals can post bond, even these really high bonds. Talk to me a little bit about the power that comes behind a federal charge. These are not people who will get out today.
No, these are not people that will get out today. So each one of these individuals will go before a magistrate judge and have a detention hearing. What's different in this system versus the state system, in the federal system, the judge hears evidence particular to that person. We'll hear all their criminal history. We'll hear while they're looked at, are they a danger to the community, or is there a chance that they're going to flee? And the judge will make the determination based on that. If it meets one of those elements, the judge at that point will detain the individual. And once they're detained throughout the process and through their trial and through sentencing. So that's a little bit different on the federal system. We do have the ability to keep those that do not have violent felony records, that are violent, that are going to commit danger to the community or flee, in custody versus just releasing them tomorrow.
How easy is it to get these devices, and like how much does something like this cost? You know, if you ran into somebody that's legally selling them, you know.
So on the streets of Houston right now, they're going for between $200 and $400. It probably costs $5 to produce them. So there's obviously a profit margin, right? And criminals being criminals, they're about making money, about profit margins. So that's part of the challenge, right? I do want to clarify one thing, make sure everyone's clear on. The slang term or the street term is a Glock switch, but these are not manufactured by Glock. They're not an accessory of Glock. They're not authorized by Glock. But much like people call privately made firearms ghost guns, a full auto switch gets called Glock switch a lot. And part of that is because overseas they're stamping them with the Glock emblem on most of them. So that's where some of the confusion comes. But this is not something that's officially sanctioned from the Glock manufacturer.
Can you just talk a little bit more about the provenance of where you're seeing the most number of these getting sold from? You think most of them are coming from China, or what other countries? Where are they getting made?
So from our intelligence, from our cases, they're being imported from China, either directly in the United States or into Mexico, and they're being smuggled up from Mexico. That's our indications. And that's from our intelligence, both our human intelligence, so people that we've interviewed, people we've caught with them. Now, but they're being mostly sold over the internet, right? And it's difficult if they're, selling on Facebook or Marketplace. We can shut those down, but they can open up a new account as quick as we can shut it down, right? And if they get IP addresses, it takes a little bit longer to shut them down, but they can, buy a new IP address in probably 5 minutes. So I'm not going to lie, it's a challenge, right? It's like fentanyl. Fentanyl's a challenge to knock it down when it's not being made in this country. And the same thing with these full auto switches. It's difficult. This is not an easy process, but that's why we need the community. We need eyes and ears out there. We need all the law enforcement eyes and ears out there we can get to make us aware of who is selling these in quantity, right? Now, if you just possess one, we're still going to prosecute you, okay, because it's that important. But we really want to know who's selling these things. If you call the ATF office and you want to turn it in because you thought you were buying something that was legal, and then you found out that it was illegal, you're not going to get prosecuted, right? So we're going to destroy that and we'll go from there. But we really want eyes and ears on who's selling these in quantity.
And just as a point of clarification, there are certain circumstances under which owning a machine gun or one of these items might be legal, but that would be if it was made before 1986 and registered with the federal government, correct?
So, conflating two things there. Machine guns in this country can be legally owned and registered by civilians, non-law enforcement, non-military. It had to be made before 1986. It's got to be registered with ATF. None of these were made before 1986, okay? But there's a small quantity nationwide that are legally registered with ATF because a company is licensed as a manufacturer by ATF, and they can create a sales sample, okay? And then they can register at sales sample with ATF. So nationwide, there's a very small number of these, but there are some that are registered.
Some of those little switches are?
Yes, some of these little switches.
And then just in case somebody's watching on a live stream today and they're hearing about these boosted federal charges, why cannot every gun used in the commission of a crime, why can't that suspect automatically face a federal weapons charge?
Well, first of all, not every crime with a gun is a federal violation, right? But if you're a convicted felon, you have a gun, or you do an armed robbery of a commercial business, we obviously charge those as a Hobbs Act. So there is a lot of cases involving guns that we do have federal charges. But like everyone else, there's limited resources. You can't convert the 80,000 backlog cases in Harris County all of a sudden over to the U.S. Attorney's Office. That's just not realistic, right? So we have to be smart about it. We have to have a strategy, which we do. We have in place a strategy for violent gun crime. So we just have to be smart about it and take the most high-risk offenders of gun crime into the federal system.